We're studying Newton's laws, and of course, as you know, there are three. Two good resources here are Hyperphysics, which has a great concept map, and the Walter Fendt applets are also a good resource for you, so have a look at those if you get a chance. Most of you know there are three laws, and of course Newton's first law. Well, what's that all about? Newton's first law, I suppose the question was, well, is it the natural state of objects to remain at rest or stay in motion? So, well, what does that mean? Do you need a force to keep something moving? And in Newton's time, the major thoughts was that it was the natural tendency of an object to come to rest. So moving objects, it was thought would have to stop moving since a force was necessary to keep something or an object moving. So Galileo, though, came to this idea that there was something called friction, and that things would actually come to a stop because of this force called friction. So if you were able to put a ball in this motion going up and down in, say, like a cup, if you change the angle, it'll keep coming to the same height. That's if there's no friction. If you let it roll down the hill and let it just go onto a flat, what would happen? If you could eliminate friction, then of course the ball would never stop. It would just keep rolling on forever. So Newton's first law of motion was saying that force is not needed to keep something in motion, and that was went against, I suppose, some of those earlier thoughts at the time. So most of you have probably heard of Newton's first law before. It does get phrased differently depending on which way you read, which book you read. Every object continues at rest or with uniform velocity unless acted upon by, and the key word here that you need to be aware of is an unbalanced force. That is the key word in that sentence. That an object will stay at rest or in motion at a constant velocity unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. That is the key word there. So sometimes this is known as inertia. It's the tendency of objects to resist change. So if the forces are balanced on you, like when you're sitting down or standing on the ground, you don't go anywhere. So before we do that, if you want to get moving as well, you need to apply a force to something to actually get it to move. This simple little video is if you were standing on a skateboard or rollerblades, how do you actually get moving in the first place? It's a rollerblader, and as you can see, if you can't apply an external force to that person, you can't actually get them going into motion. So how do you actually get going? You have to apply a force from the friction of the rubber stoppers to get you moving off the back of the skates. Or here, an external force of pushing on the table, or here something external to the person has to act on them to get them to move. Or alternatively, what if they're moving at a constant speed? How do you stop? Can you stop? No. Something external has to be applied to that object to get it to actually stop or change its motion, i.e. again the brakes on the rollerblades. So one of the key things here when we talk about Newton's first law is that the forces are balanced. That means you can have two options. You're either at rest or you're in motion at a constant velocity. In both cases, the acceleration is zero. And if one of those two things, you're going to be staying at rest or staying in motion at the same speed and direction. Some common examples you'll see where this applies is obviously if you're moving at constant speed down the freeway at 100 k's an hour, are the forces balanced? Well, of course they are, because you're moving at a constant speed. But it means that the friction and the driving forces are balanced. but you're still in motion. The reason you have seatbelts, because you will continue to move at the speed that the car was moving at if you're unrestrained until you're stopped by the dashboard, the windscreen, or worse, you flung out of the car and you hit something else. And you've all seen the TAC ads with your seatbelts and what happens if you don't wear those. So you will continue to move at the speed that the car was moving at unless you're stopped by an external force or unbalanced force, which hopefully will be your seatbelt instead of your dashboard or windscreen. Some of you might have four-wheel drives or cars that have hatchbacks, and what happens if objects come looser in the car in the event of an accident? They will continue to move around, or in this case slide off the top of the car if they're not restrained. So that's why we have things like cargo barriers in four-wheel drives and so on, so that objects, when they become airborne in an accident, don't become projectiles around the car, which can cause damage. Other examples, you may have be aware of headrests, of course. So when you move forward, when you're hit behind from a car, the headrest keeps your head in place to prevent whiplash injuries, because your head wants to stay where it is, but the car, if hit from behind, is going to move out from under you. So some examples there. Can you think of some other ones where we see Newton's first law at work? But the main thing here to remember with Newton's first law is that the sum of the forces, or the net force on the object, is zero when we're talking about Newton's first law. And that's the important thing. So the acceleration is zero.